Okay, good morning. We are here some of us are here in the New York City office, joined by our colleagues around the state to open the board meeting. We are gratified that our newest board member, I'm no longer the newest, is here with us live in New York City. Sarah, would you call the roll and we'll get going?
Sure. Yep. Good morning, everyone. We have joining us today for board members, Lisa Gomez, our chair, Vice Chair Jerry Romsky, and Robert Rodriguez and Beryl Snyder are in our New York City office. Joining us from Buffalo is Janice McKinney. And here in the Albany office are board members Joan Sullivan and Ken Evans. We are expecting Christina Coughlin to join us a little bit later. For senior staff members at DASNY, we have our Vice President, Charlie Williams, Steve Curro, Kim Ellis, Nadine Fontaine, Portia Lee, Matt Moore, Ricardo Solomon, Matt Bergen, Jenna Flinton, Dave Ostrander, Alex Sardine, Karen Ellinger, Amanda Nazario, and myself, Sarah Richards. And joining us from outside bond counsel, we have Allison Radicke from Orrick Harrington, Barry Lights from the law offices of Barry Lights. Chris Reitzel is with us from Nixon Peabody, and Seth Bryant from Bryant Rubino. I'm sorry, it's Sonny Williams, not Seth Bryant. Hi, Sonny. And that is it. Back to you, Madam Chair.
That's great. Okay, so housekeeping, we have the minutes behind tab 1. I know we had a couple of changes that were incorporated in. Thank you, members, for reading them so diligently. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Beryl and Jerry. Okay, Jerry, do you want to give us the Finance Committee report?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. We met a few minutes ago. We adopted the meeting minutes from the September meeting of Finance. We can advance and recommend that the matter that's on for today, the PIT sales tax tender program or whatever tender offer, be accepted at today's full board meeting. And unless anyone has any questions or concerns, that I conclude my report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions on this? This is sort of something we've been discussing for a little while.
Yes.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone to second?
I'll second.
Okay, Beryl, thank you so much. Okay, so now we are going to have Charlie Williams, who is our Vice President. Pursuant to DASNY's bylaws, the Deputy Executive Director / Vice President performs the duties of the Executive Director during the absence or disability of the Executive Director President. So Charlie will be taking us through the financing that is in tab 3. Thank you, Charlie, and welcome to your maiden voyage.
Thank you, Chair Gomez.
In this capacity.
Right. Well, thank you, Chair Gomez and members of the board. And I want you to turn to tab 3, with adoption of financing documents for AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. There's a transaction summary that Alex Sardine will go through with you now. And then also Allison Radicke from Orrick Harrington and Sutcliffe LLP, Barry Lights, and others will go through the transaction.
Good morning, everyone. At the September 6th board meeting, the members adopted a resolution to proceed for one or more series of bonds in an amount not to exceed 80 million on behalf of AMDA Inc. Since that time, the seeker review has been completed, the TEFRA hearing has been held, and PACB approval has been received. Otherwise, there are no changes to this financing as described to the members at last month's meeting. Now, staff is recommending that the board adopt the necessary documents for this transaction. And unless there are any questions, I will turn it over to Allison and Barry to provide an overview of the documents. Allison?
Sure. Thank you and good morning. So there's before you today for your consideration, the adoption of a new bond resolution entitled AMDA Inc. Revenue Bond Resolution, which authorizes the issuance of one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable bonds to finance or refinance certain facilities for AMDA Inc. And you also have before you today a series resolution authorizing the issuance of one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable AMDA Inc. revenue bonds in a principal amount for any individual series and in the aggregate not to exceed $80 million. Now, the institution has requested that the authority issue the authorized bonds for the purposes of financing certain new money projects located on certain of its properties in Manhattan, refinancing all or a portion of the Build NYC Resource Corporation revenue bonds, AMDA Inc. project from both Series 2015 and Series 2018, as well as refinancing a 2015 taxable loan, funding one or more debt service reserve funds, financing the payment of certain swap termination fees, and financing certain of the costs of issuance related to the authorized bonds. The institution's current expectation is that the authorized bonds will consist of two series. The Series 2023A bonds will be issued as tax-exempt bonds bearing interest at a fixed rate, and the Series 2023B bonds will be issued as taxable bonds, also bearing interest at a fixed rate. Upon certain adverse circumstances, including issues with the institution's accreditation, and in other instances, the bonds will become subject to a stepped coupon rate. The bonds will be purchased by PHCC LLC, which does business as Preston Hollow Community Capital through a private placement. Now, as you are aware, the general resolution constitutes the agreement between the authority and the holders of the bonds issued under it and contains the basic terms that apply to each series of bonds. This general resolution is a new resolution based on DASNY's new model, and the Series 2023A bonds and the Series 2023B bonds will be the first and second series of bonds issued under the general resolution. Now, bonds may be issued from time to time pursuant to the general resolution for purposes including paying the costs of one or more projects, paying costs of issuance of the bonds, funding debt service reserve funds, and paying or for providing for the payment of outstanding bonds. The general resolution authorizes bonds to be issued as fixed rate bonds, variable rate bonds, and in other forms or structures, all in accordance with a related series resolution or certificate of determination. The authorized bonds are special limited obligations of the authority, payable solely out of the payments made by the institution to the trustee pursuant to a loan agreement, and the monies and investments held in the funds and accounts established by the general resolution and the applicable series resolution. The series resolution before you today authorizes the issuance of up to 80 million aggregate principal amount of authorized bonds in one or more series. Each series of authorized bonds will be secured by the funds and accounts established with respect to such series, other than the arbitrage rebate fund, the applicable revenues, and such other security as may be required by the purchaser of the authorized bonds. It is expected that the authorized bonds will be secured by one or more mortgages on each of the project sites, as well as one or more mortgages or leasehold mortgages on additional real property, certain reserve funds, and by a debt service reserve fund for each series of the authorized bonds. In addition, it is also expected that the authorized bonds will be secured by both a guarantee and a mortgage on certain property owned and granted by Manhattan Stratford Arms, Inc., which is a wholly owned affiliate of the institution. Now, the series resolution delegates to authorized officers of the authority the power, among others, to determine customary matters within the parameters described in our letter to the board, including the aggregate principal amount of authorized bonds to be issued, the maturity dates, the rate or rates at which the authorized bonds may bear interest, the denominations of the authorized bonds, and such other matters as are not inconsistent with the terms of the general resolution and the series resolution. The series resolution also authorizes various officers of the authority to execute one or more loan agreements, one or more assignment agreements, and all other documents, including one or more intercreditor agreements that may be necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the authorized bonds. Now I'm going to turn it over to Barry, who'll talk about the loan agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, and good morning. The authority and the institution will enter into a loan agreement in connection with the issuance of the authorized bonds. The loan agreement will require the institution to make payments in amounts and at times sufficient to make timely payment of the principal, sinking fund installments, if any, and interest on the authorized bonds. The institution's obligations under the loan agreement will be general obligations payable out of any legally available monies of the institution. The institution's obligation to make payments under the loan agreement will be absolute and unconditional. To further secure its obligations under the loan agreement, the institution has granted the trustee a security interest in its gross revenues. Consistent with the authority's financing guidelines for independent institutions, specific security for the institution's obligations under the loan agreement will be determined by PHCC and the institution. In addition, there will be a supplemental covenants agreement between PHCC and the institution, which will contain certain covenants, including financial covenants, as agreed to by PHCC and the institution. Upon the issuance of the authorized bonds, the authority will assign its rights under the loan agreement and the security documents to the trustee, pursuant to one or more assignment agreements, subject to certain retained rights of the authority relating to, among others, the preservation of the tax status and statutory validity of the authorized bonds, indemnification of the authority by the institution, and the receipt of authority administrative fees. Both series of authorized bonds will be privately placed with PHCC by D.A. Davidson and Company as placement agent. PHCC is a qualified institutional.
Barry, you muted yourself.
So sorry. Can you hear me now? Apologies. At closing, PHCC will deliver an investor letter as required by DASNY's financing guidelines. The private sale of the authorized bonds to PHCC will be effectuated through the execution of a bond placement agreement or similar agreement among the authority, the placement agent, PHCC, and the institution. This concludes our presentation to the members of the board. Thank you very much.
Do any members or have questions about this?
What I'll ask, Madam Chair, is that at the closing, there's a letter coming from the borrower's counsel. And if they could provide us a copy with it after the fact, I would appreciate that.
This is the eligibility of,
Correct.
okay, so
The authority, whatever.
the authority to use the facilities as discussed.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
of course. Sarah, you got that? Okay, I'll make sure it happens. All right. Any other questions? Okay, could I get a motion, please, to adopt the financing documents as ably presented by our bond counsel and our team?
I'll move.
I think I have a Janice and a Beryl on that one, right? I'm not sure which order y'all can fight that.
I'm happy to be the second, designated second. I get
Doesn't matter.
Good.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so we have tab 4, Charlie and team, you want to go into that? I guess Matt and Chris are gonna help us on that.
We have to-
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't vote. Apologies. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, motion is approved. Tab 4, Charlie and Matt and Chris. Set. Connie, sorry. So, Charlie, are you having audio trouble? I can't hear you. Oh, technical difficulties. All right, can you all hear us, Albany? Yes?
Yes, so Barry, for the record, and just so it's clear, I guess.
They lost it back then.
Okay.
The meeting was paused briefly because we were experiencing audio issues here in the Albany boardroom. Those are rectified now. We confirmed that the board members can all hear each other from the 3 offices. Our audio cut out right at the beginning of Barry Light's summary presentation. So Barry, if we could ask you to summarize that for the benefit of the board members here in the Albany office. I assume the other 2 offices could hear Barry when he was speaking.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so Barry, if you could just summarize the transactions our board members here have, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Of course, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. The authority and the institution will enter into a loan agreement in connection with the issuance of the authorized bonds. The loan agreement will require the institution to make payments in amounts and at times sufficient to make timely payment of the principal, sinking fund installments, if any, and interest on the authorized bonds. The institution's obligations under the loan agreement will be general obligations payable out of any legally available monies of the institution. The institution's obligation to make payments under the loan agreement will be absolute and unconditional. To further secure its obligations under the loan agreement, the institution has granted the trustee a security interest in its gross revenues. Consistent with the authority's financing guidelines for independent institutions, specific security for the institution's obligations under the loan agreement will be determined by PHCC and the institution. In addition, there will also be a supplemental covenants agreement between PHCC and the institution, which will contain certain covenants, including financial covenants as agreed to by PHCC and the institution. Upon the issuance of the authorized bonds, the authority will assign its rights under the loan agreement and security documents to the trustee pursuant to one or more assignment agreements, subject to certain retained rights of the authority relating to, among others, the preservation of the tax status and statutory validity of the authorized bonds, indemnification of the authority by the institution, and the receipt of authority administrative fees. Both series of authorized bonds will be privately placed with PHCC by D.A. Davidson and Company as placement agent. PHCC is a qualified institutional buyer or QUIB. At closing, PHCC will deliver an investor letter as required by DASNY's financing guidelines. The private sale of the authorized bonds to PHCC will be effectuated through the execution of a bond placement agreement or similar agreement among the authority, the placement agent, PHCC, and the institution. And this concludes our presentation to the members of the board. Thank you.
We had one question here in the New York office, and that was from Jerry to ask that post-closing, the board be distributed a copy of the letter of validity, use of bonds for the purposes intended. Any other questions out of Albany? Albany, can you all hear us?
Yes, we are.
No question.
Okay, I guess we'll need to redo the motion. May I have a motion to approve? Jerry and Beryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So next we are on to tab 4 with Matt and Charlie and bond counsel.
Behind tab 4, you see behind tab 4, you'll see the PIT and sales tax tender, the single approval transaction, and Matt Bergen from DASNY will go through.
Thank you. So the board is being asked to authorize staff to enter into and execute the necessary documents to effectuate a tender of existing personal income tax revenue bonds and or sales tax revenue bonds on behalf of the state of New York in the amount of approximately $800 million. Through an invitation to tender, the state has an opportunity to use available funds to purchase certain outstanding PIT and or sales tax bonds from existing bondholders on terms economically advantageous to the state. After purchasing and then delivering these tendered bonds to the trustee for cancellation, these bonds would no longer be outstanding and ultimately be retired. And as noted in the transaction summary, the tender transaction will not require the issuance of any additional bonds. And Madam Chair, now I would like to hand things over to our co-bond counsels.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Before you for consideration is the adoption of an authorizing resolution authorizing the authority to participate in a tender offer transaction for the benefit of the state acting through the Division of Budget. As Matt mentioned, this is an authorization that does not entail the issuance of bonds. The resolution before you enables the authority to execute tender transaction documents including invitation to tender, dealer manager agreements with Jeffries and others, and cause to be done any and all acts, including the execution of additional documents as an authorized officer of the authority deems advisable in connection with the tender transaction. And turn it over to Sani to talk a little bit about the mechanics.
Thanks, Chris. The price to be paid for tendered target bonds may be a predetermined fixed price or a price determined by an auction or other process. The purchase of tendered target bonds will be paid from available funds provided by the Division of Budget pursuant to the applicable financing agreement relating to the target bonds. The invitations to tender will include recent disclosure relating to the applicable program under which the target bonds were issued to help enable bondholders to make their decisions. Target bonds that are tendered for purchase will be canceled upon effectuation of the tender transaction. And the final size of the tender transaction will depend on market conditions at the time of the invitations and the bondholders' responses thereto. This concludes our presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do any members have questions? Albany? Buffalo? Okay. Hearing none, could I have a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the pit sales tax transaction?
Moved.
Thank you, Robert. Could we have a second? Jerry. Okay, so that is, next up is our audit.
You need a vote.
Oh, gosh, I'm just like skipping through the vote. I apologize. May we have a vote, please? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now on to Joan and the audit committee report.
Let's get them.
We're skipping the whole thing? Okay, sorry. I thought we were
That's what
getting
they said on the notes.
You
presentation.
ready for me?
What's that?
Sorry?
Ready for the audit committee report?
No, they said they.
Well, I think they're skipping the audit presentation, but I think they're still doing the report of
Oh,
the
I'm
committee,
sorry. I
correct?
Just reading from that.
Is that correct?
Yes. It is correct. I'll give you a report.
Thank you.
Reading the tabs.
Presentation.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Joan, please, we don't mean to give you and your committee short shrift.
That's okay. The audit committee met yesterday. We approved the minutes from the prior meeting. KPMG then presented the scope and audit plan for the fiscal 23-24 audit. The audit committee charter and the internal audit department charter were also reviewed with no recommended changes. And then Jenna Flenton updated the committee on the status of the 23 audit plan. That concludes my report.
All right, so then we are on to report of the vice president, tab 6.
Can I just ask for a second? I believe Jenna, did you need or Joan, did you need an executive session right now?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
and you are correct, the vice president's report.
Thank you again, Chair Gomez. This is the Vice President's report for October 11th. And I want to start with DASNY's grant programs that have recently been advanced. We are helped to manage the higher education grant program, the HECAP grant program. And Governor Hochul has announced $63.6 million in capital grants to 30 colleges and universities across New York State. We're also involved in another program for veterans organizations, and that was yet another grant program where a recent announcement was made for $2.6 million to 39 organizations across the state. DASNY has taken also a large role in a not-for-profit grant program with the governor's office and the legislature. That is a $60 million grant program we recently opened up the application portal for. We've had a similar program in the past. It was heavily subscribed, so we expect, we expect a lot of activity around that. We are engaged in a number of other business development exercises, including with the higher education institutions. We did a lunch and learn for the higher education institutions to discuss things like dorm development and, the future of their capital programs in relation to that. And it was highly attended. There were more than 100 participants in that particular program, so there was great success there. And in your package, there's a number of things for the coming year on board action. So you will see the annual board action chart. Please review those documents. There's dates for the meetings, and please review those documents and get back to Sarah Richards and Amanda Nazario if there are any conflicts in your schedule for that. Finally, we have Project Sunlight training that we are required to do. And in terms of media outreach and seeker, there's not a lot to report today. I want to turn your attention.
Sorry, go ahead.
Could I just make one thing? The Project Sunlight. We had the Project Sunlight training at the last meeting. I just wanted to remind board members to indicate whether they've completed their review.
And that's to you?
Yes, to me, Sarah, and Amanda.
Everybody could please do the training and respond back to the team. That would be something they don't have to chase us for, so. Okay.
In your package,
Go ahead, Charlie. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
no problem. In your package, there's a resolution from the members of the Dormitory Authority Board acknowledging the service of Reuben R. McDaniel III. As you're all aware, Reuben resigned in the end of September to take a position with the Alice T. Walton Foundation. So it's a great opportunity for Reuben. Reuben had a lot of successes here and had tremendous energy. I was told Reuben he was the best sales guy I've ever come across. So we will miss his enthusiasm and energy, and you'll see some highlighted in the document, some of Reuben's accomplishments while he was here. But that is a resolution we appreciate the board adopting. And behind that are some of the tabs with the specific dates for board action and review for the coming year. So.
Anything else, Charlie?
No, that is it.
Well, I think there's no controversy in terms of recognizing Reuben's service to the organization, and I think we'd all be happy to see that resolution passed. Okay, I guess then we are on to Portia and public finance in tab 7.
Okay, so I'll note for the minutes that resolution was adopted by full consensus of the board unanimously. Thank you.
And then Ken?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree.
So I wanted to highlight one more thing. It's not in the minutes, or it's not in the in the board book. We've engaged on a pretty robust employee engagement opportunities here at DASNY. Sarah and the team have surveyed the staff about things they would like to see for engagement and for management and staff to get together and engage on a whole number of issues. We've held a couple of lunch and learns. So far, they've been tremendously popular. We are planning biannual meetings, so they will be an all hands meeting. We'll have one in December and one in the summer. And board members are invited to attend those meetings. We will have them regionally. We'll have one in Albany, which will be a large one, and then also New York City and Western New York. So this is an opportunity for our staff to learn about, from the managing directors and management, learn about our success of the year, our course charting forward, and really an opportunity for us to hear from staff and have everybody together in a larger face-to-face environment. So we're looking forward to that. The first one should be December 15th, I think.
Yep.
Sarah?
Yeah, that's
And
the Albany.
so the results of the survey, I think you'll find interesting, and Sarah will share those as well as the dates for these particular events. But we have a whole slate of employee engagement events that we're scheduling for the upcoming year. So that's really a result of the survey we did with staff. So if there's any questions on that, happy to answer.
Did that one.
No.
Very nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, I encourage, everybody to try to make it to one of these. It's important, particularly in this post-pandemic world of hybrid and engagement, as well as having employees feel sort of valued and connected to the mission of the organization. So I think this is a great step. We do this kind of thing at our company, and it makes a tremendous difference, particularly generationally. Younger people want to feel like they're, that they're connected, valued, and heard. So I think it's a great move on the part of the team.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I think outside counsel we can give you the rest of your day back. Thanks, Barry.
Okay, all right. So now we'll turn to Portia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Included in the members' materials are the standard public finance reports. Additionally, there is a resolution in connection with the Healthcare Facilities Transformation Program, statewide 3. The purpose of this resolution is to authorize the transmittal of the grants under this transformation program to the Public Authorities Control Board, PACB, for their approval. The DASNY board is not being asked to approve the projects or the process by which the grantees were selected by DOH. It's simply to authorize the transmittal of the projects from DASNY to PACB for their approval. And we have done similar resolutions in the past for this program. So, Madam Chair, there's a resolution. Ken, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add on that front.
No, just to say that the statewide programs are a great program and opportunity for healthcare institutions across New York State to improve their infrastructure. It's a grant opportunity. We've had a lot of success with statewide 1 and 2. This is statewide 3, the resolution for statewide 3 to advance through the process. And we have statewide 4 and statewide 5 in statute at this time. So all those things will be coming forward to DASNY and the group to advance. And there's noticeable improvements in the infrastructure and the healthcare delivery system across New York State as a result of these opportunities.
That's great to hear. Does anybody have any questions on this? Hearing none, we will ask for a motion to approve a resolution to transmit PACB. Okay, we have a motion out of Albany. We have a second. Sorry, who was second? You, Jerry? Okay, Jerry's gonna second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Okay, and then just briefly, in terms of my regular report, since the last board meeting, we placed and closed a PIT transaction. And regarding a market update, total year-to-date long-term new issue supply for 2023 is approximately $273.1 billion, down about 8% from last year at this time. This week's supply is expected to be lighter than recent averages at about 5.2 billion. Tax-exempt bond yields were lower on Tuesday, with the 10-year AAA MMD down 8 basis points to a 3.48, and the 30-year down 9 basis points to a 4.36. U.S. government bond yields were also lower, with the 10-year Treasury yield decreasing by 12 basis points to 4.66, and the 30-year Treasury yield falling by 10 basis points to 4.85. Municipal bond funds reported outflows for the week ending October 4th after prior week's outflows. Since the September 6th board meeting, the 1-year MMD rate has increased by 45 basis points, the 10-year has increased by 54 basis points, and the 30-year has increased by 48 basis points. During that same time period, the 10-year Treasury yield has increased by 39 basis points, and the 30-year Treasury yield has increased by 47 basis points. So clearly rates are rising. What we've seen in the last day or so are that, rates are coming back in again. Obviously, there's, with the international turmoil, there's a flight to quality. So rates have been coming in. So more to come But, you know, I think the general takeaway is that there is a lot of volatility in the market. One last thing I would like to mention is just that included in the members' materials is one bond sale summary for the Greater Southern Tier BOCES transaction, and that includes performance metrics. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
I have a question. Just overall as a, based on the trend of a flight to quality, both for treasuries and overall the US market, have you seen that carry over? I know that, as you point out, interest rates are slightly down. Have you seen increased demand for our bonds?
So, you know, Bill, we've not been in the market since sort of the rates have come in. We were in the market for the Pitt deal a number of weeks ago in September. You know, and we had a good response to that deal, but you know, I would say sort of not an overwhelming response given what market conditions had been. It was also, you know, a fairly large deal, but I think, you know, we thread the needle really pretty well. The underwriter in particular did a very good job in terms of pricing those bonds. But the market is volatile.
It'd be interesting to see what next month brings.
Whether
Whether the
It's next week.
yeah, but I won't be speaking to Portia unless I call her. So it would be interesting to see the just even the short-term trend would be interesting, especially since we go to market periodically.
Following up on that, Portia, on the sales tax / PIT resolution, I think there's about $2 billion left on our previous approval. Is that expected? Is there a timeline on that being utilized? Are you expecting anything before the end of the year or further out?
Right, so we had brought to the board a resolution for a big resolution, as you know, for PIT and sales tax. I believe it's 4.5 billion in total. We actually completed both of the deals that we intended to undertake in connection with that resolution. We did the sales tax deal, you know, back in the summertime, July, August timeframe, and then we did the PIT deal in the August, September timeframe. So both of the deals that we had planned to do in connection with that $4.5 billion resolution, we have completed.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Portia? Okay, next we will turn to Kim on tab 8.
Thanks, Madam Chair. As highlighted in the standing financial report, personnel expenses are still trending under projection, primarily due to slower than anticipated recruitments. Non-personnel expenses are also slightly under projection. We closed on one private debt issuance in the month of August, generating $200,000 in revenue. Year-to-date financing fees are at $800,000 through August. The percentage of direct hours charged to public client programs is slightly up at 95.7% against a budget of 94.6%. As mentioned in the audit committee report, KPMG presented their audit plan for the fiscal year 2024 financial statement audit at yesterday's audit committee meeting. This is the 5th and final year under their contract, which allow for 3 years with 2 one-year extensions, subject to their continued determination they are responsible. DASNY's procurement group performed their review for this year and has found them to be a responsible vendor. As mentioned at the June board meeting, our Assistant Director of Accounting, who oversees the financial statement audit, resigned her position at the end of June. And I'm pleased to announce that we have brought on her replacement, Diane Topple, who has been with us for just about 2 weeks now. She comes to us with a vast amount of experience in finance and the accounting fields. I think she'll be a great addition to the team, and we have her on board well ahead of the year-end audit activities getting underway. So I expect this year's audit to run smoothly, just as in other years. That concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
That's great.
Are we okay budget-wise, Madam Chair, and Finance, about, like, I know there was some hiring freeze or something, you know?
Well, I think our bigger problem, correct me if I'm wrong, team, is that we're below where we want to be on hiring. We've been
Right,
having trouble filling
Well,
positions.
I was.
Freeze
that was where I was
notwithstanding.
going, no, like, does that impact that? In other words, can we continue to hire even if we haven't reached what we need, especially in construction? We're on the same wavelength. is
Right,
the
right,
question.
right.
I just probably phrased it differently.
Right, so I think the question is, are there any sort of freeze or austerity measures that would prevent us from hiring some of the positions that we have long been trying to hire for, especially in construction?
Thank you. Yes. Rephrasing that, thank
That's no, but I don't think that it would impact any open recruitments that are going on right now. But obviously, as we move into the end of this fiscal year and look towards budgeting for next fiscal year, we will have to take a look at what measures that we need to put in place to limit a no growth budget.
Okay, thank you. Well, that dovetails nicely into the construction report and Steve on tab 9.
Thank you. Good morning. Behind tab 9 are the standard construction division reports. A couple of highlights. We did pick up 4 new projects totaling about 55 million. 2 for CUNY, 1 for OMH, and 1 for SUNY. We completed 3 projects, 1 at SUNY Buffalo and 2 for Gozer. Our expenditures year over year for the period ending August 2022 were 242 million. For the period ending August 2023 were 322 million. So there's a net gain of 80 million in expenditures year over year. As far as the programs go, just quick updates on SUNY and CUNY. At SUNY, our FIT project, the substantial completion date remains February of 2024. Finishes, MEP work, all that continues. We are supposed to be touring the FIT Board of Directors tomorrow morning for the new project. As far as SUNY New Paltz goes, we are very close to a substantial completion date of October 15th. Things seem to be in place for that. The college will be occupying the Wasting Hall for the spring 2024 semester. UAlbany's Colonial Quad, due to complete in May of 2024, is on track. That's a gut renovation of 2 low-rise residence halls and the addition of a fitness center. And lastly, for SUNY, Alfred's Mackenzie Hall, Phase 3B completed. We received a notice of beneficial occupancy on September 18th. Phase 3C is currently progressing. We expect to have that done before the spring semester of 24. On to CUNY. I met with CUNY's, our peers at CUNY on September 21st, discussed a number of changes associated with the program and project delivery. One thing we are doing is we're moving our CUNY monthly coordination meetings back to in-person meetings beginning January of 2024. We spoke about a number of other initiatives underway, and we'll be picking up another meeting with them before the end of the year. In the meantime, our Lehman College project, this is the School of Nursing, the $100 million new build. FDNY was on site. They did not complete their inspection due to some issues with the documents that they were using for the inspection. We need to get them back, and we need to TCO that project in time for spring of 24 occupancy. We continue with very robust portfolios at Queens College, Hunter, York, the College of Staten Island, New York City Tech, and City College. We are also working both internally and with CUNY facility staff on the advancement of programs and project efficiencies that go along with our project delivery. Lastly, the DOH Life Sciences Lab. We expect either late this week or early next week to be submitting to the AG and the Office of State Controller our first submission for approval with regard to design and early bid packages for the DOH lab. We do still have 30 open recruitments as far as administrative items in the construction division that we're working on filling. We are negotiating 3 PLAs right now, one with Rochester for the Rochester Psychiatric Center, one with Buffalo for the Western New York Children's Psych Center. And last week we were in New York City to negotiate the PLA for the 5-borough blanket PLA for all projects in the 5 boroughs. Lastly, PM Web implementation. I did note last time we were done with phase 1. We're working on migration right now out of contract manager into PM Web, the remaining projects. At this point, we've got about 750 active projects in the new system. And that concludes my report.
How's the lab job? In Albany.
I didn't hear you.
The lab.
Yep. What about it?
That's, are we getting close or?
Yeah, I mentioned that the end of this week or beginning of next week, we'd be submitting our package to the AG's office and OSC for approval. That will get the DB team started with design and early bid packages.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve?
I do. Steve, do you, you said you're like 30 staff behind. Are we making progress? Are you seeing it opening up in terms of people interested?
It's been really challenging in certain areas. The engineering, mechanical, electrical engineers are very, very difficult to hire at this time. Project managers in New York City are, demanding salaries that are much higher than the public sector can afford. So there's a lot of competition for those types. So it's been difficult in those areas, I would say. Field reps as well.
So do you have to turn away projects? Are you at that point?
We haven't turned away projects. We've been bringing on consultant staff, CM staff to help us with our field and field needs. The customer agencies, a number of them want DASNY staff on their projects and not third parties, but when we explain what our staffing situation is, they tend to come around. And as long as there's a DASNY staffer involved, they're okay with CM staff filling in the gaps. It's been a challenge, we've been talking about this for a while.
Questions for Steve? Okay, next we're going to turn to Nadine. There is not a general counsel's report, so I would like a motion to go into executive session. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation, matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and proposed, pending, or current litigation.
I'll move.
Beryl. Jerry, thank you. Sarah, would you turn the recording off so that we may go? No decision. All right, now we are back from executive session. While we were in executive session, no decisions were made other than to return to the public session. Is there any other business that we have not covered? Okay, our next regularly scheduled meeting is November 8th. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Janice. Second.
I'll do it.
Beryl, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. See you all November 8th.
Thank you very much.